My name is Blake Cowling. I started farming cannabis actually, and then wanted to get into creating superfoods. Was doing some YouTube research into the healthiest things I could grow, and a lot of videos pointed to microgreens. So that's how I started that.
My name's Austin. I'm just Blake's friend. I didn't have any background in horticulture or growing anything. Blake just came across the Microgreen YouTube videos and asked if I wanted to give it a shot with him. And then it's been
Yeah,
a
right on.
battle ever since.
Biggest similarity or difference between growing cannabis and microgreens?
I thought there would be at least some carryover. There is not, like at all. With cannabis, I was looking at maybe 3 harvests per year, so really long term and taking years to build up a living soil and doing lasagna tech and all that, and then switching to microgreens. It was just like everything that was important with growing cannabis thrown out the window. Everything is harvested really fast. Most people don't even use soil. So yeah, really, there's really no carryover at all. Even selling actually was totally different.
Which one's more profitable these days? I think that people might think cannabis, but I don't know.
Like it's definitely
It's microgreens.
definitely microgreens.
Yeah, cannabis was really profitable for a while, and then as it became legalized and red tape came in, the farmer kind of started making less and less per pound. And the money in cannabis is more so on the dispensary end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what the license I think at the time of when we started Microgreens was like a quarter million.
Yeah, it was also that the licensing for cannabis, not only did you need a cultivation license, which I had, but as soon as more red tape started coming in, they wanted a license for distribution and testing and packaging, just different licenses for everything. And altogether, it was like $250,000 and a wait list.
Wow.
To
Yeah.
hopefully sell some stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So was the impetus then like you saw the regulatory steamroller coming at you and you said, hey, like I want to stay in farming, but we got to do something else and pivot?
Yes. Yeah, that was exactly that.
What put microgreens on the radar?
It was really just that, like, I grew up in a really health conscious family, and my parents were always super into organic foods and trying to just feed us the most nutritious things possible. So it was just, even with cannabis, I was trying to grow like the healthiest, no chemical, good for you cannabis I could. So
Right.
it was that transition, just finding the next healthiest thing food
Were,
wise.
were you part of the cannabis journey, Austin, or did you come in on the
Oh,
micro?
gosh. I would come over and help out, but I wasn't too involved.
Got it. So you start rolling microgreens. When did you guys officially get started? I'm trying to think back to our timeline because you've bought our trays for quite a while. That might have been 2021, 2020. When did you
Yeah,
officially roll?
August, I think August 2019
Yeah.
was the first. I think that might have been when the Scintilla Farms was created. But I think I have a couple pictures in my camera roll, maybe a month or two prior, of us with just some small trays, just working on one or two radish trays a week.
Yeah. But we didn't get any actual sales until
Yeah, January 2020.
January 2020.
That's when like the restaurant aspect of it started, and like we were actually growing to sell.
Yeah. In the beginning, we were thinking we might do like home delivery subscriptions, and got some interest from a restaurant called Garden Kitchen in La Mesa, and then realized that was probably a better revenue stream. I was just going to restaurants instead.
So from that August startup to January the following year, was it a lot of getting systems in place, scaling up to meet restaurant demand? Did you have any idea of where restaurant demand would be?
No
I don't. We
idea.
had no idea what we were in for. I think we sized up 3 times in a year or 2 years, and it was the sizing up was so small that we would just fill it up and fill it up and fill it up, and we'd constantly have to get bigger and bigger spots.
Yeah. The main lesson that we kept on having to learn in the beginning was not buying the bigger thing. We just kept on, but we kept on needing to scale, and we would just scale a tiny bit. And really, we just needed to buy the biggest fridge and the bigger greenhouse. And we wasted a lot of money doing the smaller thing.
Is that just because you weren't sure where growth and everything would end up? Because I can see where that bridge gets a little tricky.
Yeah,
I-
we
yeah.
just didn't expect it
Yeah,
to grow
I-
as fast as it did.
Yeah, I think we just had no idea what to expect and what a couple restaurants looked like. We had one restaurant that filled up. It's called the Clear House, and we have a picture of it on Instagram. But that was our first like greenhouse. It was like an actual greenhouse,
It's
and
like a 5 by.
yeah,
Yeah.
a single restaurant filled up that entire space, and we're like, holy crap, what do we do now? We just spent $1,000 on this thing, and then now it can only hold one restaurant's orders.
So like a lot of growing pains figuring out the scaling.
Yeah, but we weren't sure, or just we had no idea what to expect with growth.
Yeah. So this most recent move into the warehouse was we gave ourselves 4 times the amount of space that we were using before. So that was hopefully this will last us a couple of years, or maybe hopefully not.
Yeah, no. If it doesn't, that's in some ways that's a good problem, right?
Yeah.
I know it's like, hey, we bought that thing, we didn't need it, but at least it's not going the other way of we bought that thing that was a little bit bigger and we didn't need it for a bad reason.
Yeah, it always stinks for the first couple months because you're like, wow, like we really don't need all of this space, or we don't need this big appliance. Like we're not filling it up. But then by the time you fill it up, you're like, that was definitely worth it, and it would have been pretty tough if we didn't have that.
Yeah.
When restaurant sales first kicked in for you, when you first started really selling, where were you at trays a week in sales about?
Oh, jeez.
Nothing. Just you mean when we first had a couple, just
Let's say like that January timeframe, like when you realize, okay, there's something substantial here, like it's got legs, we have a business. Like I'm trying to get a level of like, where was your baseline at the beginning?
baseline at the beginning was probably like 3 restaurants.
Yeah.
We were growing like 12 trays a week.
Yeah, I was going over to
Yeah.
Blake's house for like maximum 2 hours for 5 days a week. It was really quick work.
Yeah.
And where are
Yeah,
you
it
at
was-
now?
It was honestly more just coming over to hang out than it
Yeah.
was even to come over
Yeah.
to work. Yeah.
So hang out, plant some trays, and then in the process, yeah.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
super laid back and just like we could hang out. There wasn't enough work to do. It was also by the time we got our first couple of restaurants, I think COVID kicked in almost immediately.
Yeah.
So that was kind of not a standstill, but people put their orders in and then laid back and then they slowed down everything.
Yeah. We're really only now beginning to know what it's like to operate outside of the COVID. Yeah. I don't want to say lockdowns, but yeah, around because our chefs still tell us that they're not where they were before COVID happened as far as covers weekly.
Yeah, so it's like COVID's over, but the economy is awful. So it's just like almost the same thing of just people not having the resources to go out and go to dinner, go to nice restaurants.
And where are you at for trays now a week?
What do we do? We do I think 200 to 250 planted trays a week.
Yeah.
Okay. So quite a ways from 12 to 250 in 5
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're planting 60 trays today and we have, definitely around 250. Yeah. Few weeks.
When you first got that initial restaurant customer, how did that come about?
That was Garden Kitchen, wasn't it?
Garden Kitchen. It was my aunt's friend. So it was like a family friend situation. That was a small order. We're still working with her. She's awesome. And then we loaded up a car with a bunch of samples because we grew too much and wanted to just drive around all day downtown and find some customers. And what's funny is walking up to chefs and trying to sell our microgreens. We didn't have shirts on. We didn't have Scintilla shirts on.
Yeah, we didn't have business cards.
Yeah, no business cards. We were using like grocery bags to hold our stuff in. And it was probably not a great first experience, but all the chefs that we thought were the worst experience ended up being our first customers and our best customers to this day, actually.
So it was like they liked the product and then they believed in
it's
you
like
guys.
products spoke for our lack of
Salesmanship.
yeah.
You think you had the passion and stuff like that and conveyed, hey, like we're going after this. We want to do this.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
I think also that was what 4 or 5 years ago. So also we were a lot younger then. We were only just barely 20s. I think Blake was even 19.
Yeah, everyone asked us how old we were.
Yeah, and everyone was just like, "Is this like your dad's business? Did you guys was this your family business? Do you guys
Yeah.
own this?" And we're like, "Yeah, no, like we This is our thing.
Mm.
And a lot of chefs just second guess that.
So a lot of people, there's saturated markets. San Diego, I don't know how many people live in downtown, but the county is several million people. So it's a huge city. You think it'd be crowded with farmers and stuff, but there's maybe not a ton here. What was your experience when you started going door knocking, selling microgreens, having to compete against either other local vendors or the normal major distribution channels?
It wasn't too hard. Like, for example, the first sample that we handed out that went poorly on the first meeting, and then the guy called us back the next day to come in and talk to him. It was because he noticed the freshness of it. So in the beginning, we were mainly just competing with this big distributor, Specialty Produce, and they sell fresh origin microgreens. But because it's a distributor that's giving the microgreens to the restaurants, they just weren't as fresh. And everyone's main complaint was that shelf life was about 3 days, as to where the shelf life was at least 2 weeks. Yeah, it was more so just letting the microgreens speak for themselves, the quality and the shelf life is really what made it easy for us to compete.
And then from there, has it been a lot of continue reaching out to chefs? Has it been word of mouth?
We get word of mouth every once in a while, and those are really cool. It's nice to get that experience, and our product was good enough for a chef to recommend us to someone else. So that's a great feeling. But we do samples a lot.
Yeah, it's pretty even, honestly.
So you're still actively like going out prospecting, if you will.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's just so many restaurants in San Diego. And honestly, there's a lot of new restaurants popping up left and right that I feel like it'll almost never stop.
Yeah.
All right. So that first pitch 5 years ago was rough. What's your latest, greatest pitch if I'm a chef and you're coming in?
I feel like it's honestly stayed the same.
It stayed the same. We've just gotten
Yeah.
smoother at it. And now we got Scintilla t-shirts. And
Yeah, we just
legit looking bags.
Yeah.
And
we
not
know
just-
not to talk for 5-10 minutes. Just like all I need is a minute 30. Even that is too long.
yeah, respecting the chef's time. Oh, also, I guess we figured out better times to go in and talk to them because, in the beginning, we were really trying to set up meetings with the chefs and that just didn't work. They didn't want to set up meetings. They didn't want to talk to us. So we figured the best way to do it was just to walk in like we worked there and go right into the kitchen with samples unannounced and then just not take up too much of the chef time. Just be there for a minute in and out.
You go through the back or through the front?
If we could go for the back, that's
Yeah.
preferable because then you skip all the front of house people trying to stop you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's walking through the back door and then it's, hey chef, sorry to bother you. Do you have a minute?
Yeah, you just try to find who's
Exactly
in
that.
charge. We do the just quick bullet points. Like we tell them who we are, we tell them we're organic, what we do, mushrooms, microgreens. We do deliveries on Tuesdays and Fridays. Everything is harvested on Tuesdays and Fridays. We do organic practices. There's no delivery fee. And then we'll hand them our fresh sheet, go over some prices, tell them about how long everything lasts in the fridge. And then on the back end of the fresh sheet, we also have a lot of our restaurant's logos, which comes into handy.
That's helped enormously, actually. Kenner Exchange specifically, a lot of chefs will flip it over and see that restaurant that works with us, and that buys us a lot of credibility.
Yeah, street cred, right? Like they're in the industry already. So
Yeah.
We'll get some chefs will be like, are you going to be able to fulfill this order? Can you handle this? And then they'll give us like a medium sized order and be like, yeah, we have 5 to 10 restaurants that do that. Like, that's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of them are used to extremely small farms.
Especially with
Whereas-
microgreens.
Yeah. Whereas we're capable of producing some pretty big orders.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of microgreens growers that are just doing it as a little side hustle, like in their room or closet or whatever. And so when they approach a restaurant that has a big demand and they can't meet the one restaurant's demand, now all the chefs think of microgreens growers as being just 1 or 2 racks.
what's big demand for you guys?
We're in talks with La Jolla Shores Hotel, the beach and tennis club, and then the Marine Room. And they said they're going to go through 30 pounds of mushrooms a week, which is like a good, nice order, but it's also it's again, not hard for us to do. We had a restaurant during COVID there's 2 of them and they ordered 80
Oh,
clamshells of cilantro a week.
Okay, so yeah, so this is
So
not.
that, I mean, that fills up our space, but it's also, it's not that it's not hard to do. It's just not, it's possible.
Yeah. Those guys were the biggest
Yeah.
order for sure.
We're in talks with another company that's trying to do green powders for broccoli and radish. And he was asking if we could produce 100 trays of broccoli or radish a week. And we were like, now you're talking, like, that's awesome. That's a huge order that will cut down a little bit on price because it really is bulk. That's a bulk order, but it's also extremely doable in the space that we have right now.
And those are really easy varieties that grow fast too. So they're not going to take up too much space on the shelf.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome to hear. And it's cool that you're just picking this all up by old fashioned, like hard work of going out there. What would you say is the hit rate people that take or place an order relative to how many doors you walk through?
Geez, 2 to 3 to 10, 2 to 3.
I think it depends because a lot of the time I'll just be going based off of what restaurants are not too far off of my delivery route, and I'm just walking in everywhere. And that's a lot lower of that's probably 1 out of 10
Yeah,
success rate.
yeah.
And then when we're going by their Instagram pictures and seeing what restaurants use microgreens that we already grow, and then we're bringing them samples of those microgreens that they're already using, what 1 out of 3, that's a lot better.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot higher. I think
Yeah.
it depends. We have a 5 clamshell minimum, which also comes into play. So some people will be like, yeah, I'm super interested, but I would only go through 2 a week. And we're like, all right, San Diego is a pretty big area. Driving somewhere for $20 to $30 just doesn't really work for us. But we have had spots that are right next to each other. And then if you have 4 or 5 restaurants in a surrounding little shopping center, if there are a couple 2 or 3 clamshell restaurants, then we'll go ahead and work with them because you're just hitting so many spots at one parking spot.
Yeah, my delivery route, I drive down though.
Gotcha. It stays. Let me just make sure it stays recording so we can edit that blip out. So the last
Okay.
thing I heard was my delivery route.
Okay, yeah. So
Oh, yeah,
my,
the
my,
101.
my delivery route is on the 101. So when I'm going to new restaurants, giving them samples on the 101, I'll just let them know, don't worry about the order minimum because I'm driving by your place anyways.
Yeah, I like that strategy a lot of. There's the proximity of, hey, we're just going to get everybody in the area where we're already going. It doesn't hurt to ask if they take it. We're already going there. And then the
Yeah.
more targeted approach of, we're going to find people that use the stuff. We're going to find people what exactly they're using. We'll give them our version of what they're using. And then it becomes an A to B comparison in their kitchen. And a lot of times I'm assuming your quality is going to win out over something that comes through a large food distributor.
Yeah. Yeah. So the only way that we do lose is we are slightly more expensive. So if a kitchen isn't so set on quality and more so just, hey, like I'm having to use these because it's like the norm, just norm on everybody, all the other restaurants, then we will lose out on those restaurants. They're just not up for the quality and the price of the quality. But yeah, going to Instagram and finding those bigger restaurants that we know for a fact use microgreens has definitely helped out in going and finding them rather than doing this restaurant is right next to my spot already, I'm going to go there. Because those usually end up being the smaller orders.
Yeah.
His organic helped.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
I just paused it while there was a gap. We'll edit that out. Okay. Mostly selling to, or all selling to restaurants, 100% restaurant sales, right?
100%.
How do you think about that in terms of fragility? Do you get nervous around that? You've been through COVID, so you're probably somewhat hardened off to that right out of the gates. But how does that feel with 100% of sales going through the restaurant market stream?
You're right. It is a little nerve wracking thinking
Yeah.
about like COVID coming up or something like that again. But I guess there's security in just getting more and more restaurants. Just the more restaurant accounts we have, the better, because we know they're not all going to fail if something like that happens again.
I feel like it also, you have that idea in the back of your head with any business and any group of people that you would sell to. There could always be some crazy event that happens. So if you talked about COVID 10 years ago, you'd be like, what are you talking about? You're insane. No one's going to stay in their house for 2 years. So it's just like those weird events that you can't foresee, and you just have to move along with them and do your best. But yeah, as Blake said, definitely getting more restaurants has definitely helped us out, because then if everybody lowers their order, we still have so many restaurants with at least a baseline order.
Yeah. Just able to stay afloat with that.
Whereas with the home orders, they don't ask for enough. They don't go through enough microgreens. It's hard for a family or a couple to go through 5 clamshells of microgreens. That's asking a lot from them weekly.
Yeah. Another thing that's really helped a lot too with that worry is, so with microgreens, we understand that when a restaurant is having a tough times financially, they're going to cut ingredients that aren't super essential to their plates,
Which
so
is
that would
us.
be microgreens, right? Because they're mainly using them for garnishes. And a way that we've, you know, buffered that, I guess, is offering mushrooms now, because mushrooms are usually more of a main part of the plate.
Yeah, and that's something we'll definitely have to dig into here because I think it's an interesting aspect. And seems like more and more farms that I've noticed that do microgreens are bringing on mushrooms as well as a diversifier. Have you looked at the mom and pop grocery stores? I'm just thinking, or the smaller chains in San Diego. We have Fraser Farms, Sprouts, Jimbo's. I don't know what's downtown, but have you ever explored that avenue?
Even those guys, they have.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some smaller ones that we could check out still, but we approached Windmill Farms in the very beginning. They were unwilling to offer us more than $3 per clamshell, which just didn't work for us. And then just recently, I didn't talk to anyone, just doing market research, walking through Seaside Market in Cardiff. I noticed they were selling their microgreen clamshells for something like $8 per 32-ounce clamshell. So I'm sure they wouldn't be able to offer us much more.
Yeah, they sell it a much smaller size too.
Yeah.
And then they have to make money too. So they're just, if we have a lot of employees, and maybe the next move, that might be a good idea. But for the bang for your buck, I think right now restaurants is just the key. Because
Yeah.
even with mushrooms, it's the same thing with mushrooms. They're buying for pennies on the dollar and you're just selling so much that it ends up working out for really big companies. I just don't think we are at that size yet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got it. With varieties that you can grow, there's a million different types. I've learned that as we've gotten more and more into distributing seeds. How have you honed in on the sweet spot of what chefs want, what makes money for you, what fits into your system, days to maturity wise, what grows well? What's that blend? How have you found
Like
that?
the sweet spot.
Yeah.
Like we thought there would be. And in the beginning, we were really just trying to stay at a basic 5 varieties. But as chefs ask for more and more stuff that they can't find at specialty or elsewhere, it's nice to be the guys that are growing stuff that no one else is. So the list just keeps on growing of the varieties that we offer. We're always,
I think we're like 35 now.
yeah, and we're always testing new ones too. Like right now, we're not offering watercress yet, but we just started testing out some trays of it. And mint is next. So I don't think there's a sweet spot. I think offering the most you can offer to the chefs you can is the best move, especially when, like maybe there's 5 different ways to grow 30 different microgreens. Like a lot of microgreens just grow the exact same way as other ones.
Do you find managing a tray or two of one thing? Because like with 200 trays a week, if you're growing 35, maybe you're not growing all of them all the time, but that's some of those are going to have 5 trays. Some might have 25 trays. Does it get to be a challenge to balance out all those varieties so you're not stuck with any of them?
If someone lowers their orders and now we don't need as much carrot, we'll just we have a mix. So we'll throw more carrot in our Scintilla mix, or now we'll have more carrot for carrot samples. We'll give everyone, even our current customers, maybe we'll all give them a free clamshell of carrot, and then maybe they'll pick up carrot and add that to their weekly order. So it's never been a big problem.
And then learning curve wise and just management, you alluded to, it's not that big of a deal because there's let's say 5 paths you can go down to grow. and everything.
Yeah, it either it either
Yeah.
it needs weights, it doesn't need weights. It needs a lot of water, it doesn't need that much water. You have to soak it. You don't soak it.
Needs a covering, doesn't need a covering.
Yeah, and you need
Yeah.
medium on top of the seed. You don't. So there's only so many different variables.
Dry.
Yeah, and then
you got it.
and then you have seed density.
And even seed density, that one we can pretty much eyeball now. When we get a new seed that we've never worked with before, we look at the size of the seed. We can say, okay, that's about the size of a arugula seed. So we're going to start that out at 25 grams because that's what we grow arugula at. And that'll usually be close to, if not the density.
You have everything set up, so you must. So your harvest Tuesdays and Fridays. So are you on a regular planting calendar? Meaning, like, if you think about days to maturity, some stuff might be like 7 to 9 days. I don't know exactly where you're at with cilantro and basil, but those could be like 20. How are you balancing that out?
Yeah, so everything. Yeah, so we have a calendar, a physical calendar. I don't like a computer calendar. I want to be able to like mess with it and change it and use it. So we have everything written down, and it's made to where each variety will be ready the day of, if not the day before, if we get some strange heat wave.
Yeah, if we're harvesting on Friday, then, and we know that at the current temperature, we're growing cilantro in 24 days, then we'll just count back 24 days from the Friday and say, just say that's a Wednesday. We'll know we have to plant cilantro every Wednesday to harvest on Friday.
How many days a week does that have you seeding?
I think
Twice a week on every variety.
Yeah, we see that we're planting trays 6 days a week. The only day we don't plant is Sunday.
Okay, wow. Okay, so somebody's seeding something every single day.
Yeah, it helps spread it out because
It would be a lot of work if we didn't do that.
yeah, planting 125 trays twice a week would be nice for the other days, but there is a lot more farm work to do on top of those 2 days. So those would be extremely long days.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have. Right now, I think we're doing like between 20 to 40 trays a day. Kind of. That's like the average.
Yeah. And some varieties too have a long harvest window where they're good to be harvested. And then some varieties like sunflowers, I feel like they're perfect for maybe 2 days.
Yeah.
And then they grow their true leaves and they become bitter, or they're too small and you don't get a good yield. So some varieties have to be planted on the day that they need to be planted on. And some varieties you can plant any day of the week and you're going to be able to harvest a good looking microgreen on the harvest day.
5 years in, how many years do you think it took you to get in this like Zen feel of, I know how these varieties work. I know how they work in my growing environment and climate.
Yeah, pretty quickly. I'd say the hardest part was we started growing everything outside. We weren't very climate controlled. And then we moved inside, and then it became a breeze. It was super easy. And then we moved to the house in Escondido. And then that was a garage, which was not
Like indoor, outdoor.
Yeah, it
kinda
wasn't.
like
Its
both.
garages aren't very well insulated. So the season changes is what messed us up.
Yeah, we
So-
were really only able to control the climate at night when
Yeah.
the garage door was closed. And then during the day, it just made more sense to open it up, even if it was a hot day.
Yeah, but like the winter times, you're tacking on potentially 4 to 6 days per variety compared to the summer days.
Yeah.
So everything gets backed up a little bit more. The germination room is quite full because everything is taking a lot longer. Whereas in the summertime, trays are just coming in and out every single day pretty quickly. But now that we're in this new spot, we're insulated. We've got climate control pretty much down. It's our first year here, so we're having to buy a lot of bigger appliances to deal with the more square footage. But after this year, our current location should be pretty manageable.
So for the microgreen side of things, when you moved into the warehouse that people watching will see it behind you, full climate control means temperature, humidity, all that airflow. And then
Yeah.
you're obviously growing under lights.
Yep.
Right on. For harvest days, how long does it take you to harvest on any given day?
3 hours, depending how quick we are.
Yeah, it's funny because
Depends if you're talking
I
about
feel like it's
labels.
stayed the same since the very beginning, even though we're harvesting way more just because we've gotten faster at harvesting everything. So yeah, 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah,
depending on-
the efficiency of it and having more space, people aren't walking over each other. There's just a better flow.
That's huge too. Yeah. There was
Yeah.
no workflow at our last location because we were just maxing out the space to grow and we had no space to work in. And now we actually have space to work in. So we're not getting in each other.
And then prior to having a commercial fridge, that slowed us down a lot because
Yeah.
we would put everything in the fridge, but you can only put so much stuff in the fridge. So you're just waiting for things to be off gassed, and then you're putting it in the next batch. Whereas now we can we can cut 50% of everything that needs to be harvested, put everything in the fridge, and then continue working because we have all that table space now.
Off gassing in 2 batches instead of 10.
Okay, I've talked to several growers. There's 2 camps. There's the I'm harvesting with some sort of mechanized device that's fast and it jumbles everything up but I'm done with the tray in 2 seconds. I'm harvesting with a chef knife that's super sharp. I'm placing it in a clamshell. All the stems are lined up in a certain direction. What camp are you in and why?
Yeah,
That
that
second.
is us. Yeah, that's how we got some of our restaurants without having t-shirts or business cards in the very beginning. That's just telling them like, hey, we're cutting everything on the same day. We're using a sushi knife. Everything is propped up. The reason behind that is because the water flows to the bottom. So then the longevity of the product lasts longer. So I think telling the chefs how you go about doing things shows the passion behind it, which makes them more interested in it. And that you're not just like here to make money because it's like it's not even the newest fad, but like the current fad.
Yeah. There is no machine harvester that can cleanly cut the microgreen without tearing it in some way. That tear just releases so much more water into the clamshell and the shelf life is just so much less, especially when you
I
have
feel like
them
we've
all.
even noticed it with mushrooms. We use, what are they called?
Yeah, we
The
use
blades?
surgical scalpels for cutting mushrooms.
And we've tried like dual scissors before, and even that serrated cut, the mushrooms won't last as long. So even mushrooms and microgreens like that clean cut.
Got it. And then it's all how are you placing them in the clamshell? Because you mentioned something like of how the water drains away. So now I'm curious.
All standing upright, so the leaves are on top and the stems are all on the very all facing down towards the bottom of the clamshell. And then we throw the clamshell in the fridge open, so the water drains down and then evaporates out, removing all the moisture from the clamshell and keeping it dry and fresh.
Yeah. And there's probably something about that presentation, right? That also elevates the product. If I hand somebody something nicely arranged, it looks very different than if I hand somebody a jumble. Not that a jumble's bad, but it just looks messier.
Yeah, I
Right.
think it looks nice, especially when you're doing samples. Someone opens something up and then you're like, oh, wow. Again, you're like, this is extremely presentable.
Yeah.
And then it also helps out if we happen to miss like a bad microgreen, one that like didn't rot, but it like wilted. And if it's now on the bottom rather than in the middle with everything around it, it's not going to infect everything around it nearly as fast no, it wouldn't affect them if they were standing upright rather than if they were all jumbled together.
Yeah. Harvesting with your hand and looking at it before you place it in the clamshell, it forces you to have another layer of quality control that you wouldn't have if a machine was throwing it into a clamshell without you inspecting it.
What are the clamshell sizes you're using?
One size, 32-ounce clamshells.
32-ounce clamshells. Okay. And then obviously that weight varies by variety. How long, like precise cutting? We'll edit this. We will edit this. Okay.
What was that question?
Sorry. Question again. Let me just say edit. We'll edit that part tight. Okay. I think some people don't go the chef knife route, clean cutting, properly placing, because they think it takes a long time. If you're harvesting, let's just say sunflower, because most people grow that, a tray of sunflower, packing it all out into clamshells, how long about would it take to do a tray?
Fast.
A minute 30.
Yeah, even less than a minute.
Yeah, a minute is like you're talking. We get four to five clamshells per sunflower tray, and it takes us about 2 handfuls per clamshell. And two clamshells to put in the 2 handfuls to put in the clamshell shouldn't take you more than 20 seconds to do.
Yeah.
Just a matter of getting fast at it, getting precise, knowing what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think it's a
Yeah.
difference if it's like just started harvesting the day, or if you're like 25 trays in where you're just in a groove, got it down, you know exactly how big of a handful to do. You're not having to pluck out because you put too much in and now it won't close.
So you just know about by look, feel, this is enough weight.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we measured them in the very beginning, and it takes a really long time.
Yeah. And then
And
without measuring them, we take them all out and then we measure them all to see if we're remaining consistent. And you are. Your hand is always the same size. So when you grab 2 handfuls, it's always going to be pretty much the same weight.
and then you
Sure.
can only fill up a clamshell so much. So everything is pretty much the exact same weight.
Yeah. We try and pack them a little more maybe than our competitors to give our clamshells more value without packing them too much and bruising the mic.
And everything goes in the same size clamshell.
Yep.
Yeah.
What's the price you sell to restaurants on clamshells range from where to where?
Because we grow, because we throw everything in the same size clamshell, stuff that is really dainty and takes up no space at all in the bigger clamshell is more expensive. So
It's
leeks.
Yeah, it's 12 to 18 or $19.
Yeah. And leeks are the most expensive because you can throw,
An infinite amount in there.
yeah, you could throw a whole tray of leeks into one clamshell and it's just a heavy brick of a clamshell. But because of our shelf life, that works. And chefs have never had a problem with leeks getting bad before they use them all or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting hearing the changes you guys have made over the past 5 years, your success and growing. When did you start kicking around the idea of bringing on mushrooms?
Yeah, in the very beginning, we've always talked about what we want to see Scintilla Farms as, and like what the end goal would be and what we would offer. But it really came into play before this move. We were just talking about how this would be a good time to start it. We're making a good amount of money. If it does fail, we have enough restaurants to back up paying for that part of the unit. So we were like, sure, why not? Let's actually look into this and see if it's feasible, how to do it, where to get everything from.
What do you
Yeah, and they
think?
might go different routes too in the future. The microgreens might remain restaurant sales, and the mushrooms might be better turned into powders or direct to consumer or whatever it might be.
What's it cost to get into a mushroom growing operation, like the equipment for something your size? How much would somebody have to invest?
We're not growing from spore. We're not starting from the very, very beginning of the process with petri dishes and all that. We're buying blocks that are inoculated and then fruiting them in a fruiting chamber that we built. So we built a 8x40
Yeah, 8x40 little greenhouse for
fruiting
the
chamber.
mushrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was like probably everything installed was like $2,000.
$2,000.
Yeah.
Including the
For-
greenhouse?
Including the what?
Including the greenhouse?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So we built it. It's just, what is it? It's like insulation board.
Yeah, we built a fruiting chamber out of insulation board from Home Depot and a bunch of 1x2s to for a skeleton of it. And then we made a DIY little fogger that keeps it above 90% humidity in there. Just a cheap Lasco fan.
And then a bunch of Seville, just chrome racks.
Oh yeah, with the Seville racks, then it's a lot more money. Yeah, I don't know how much a Seville rack is.
All in all, it's probably $4,000 when it's all filled out. And then we're hoping in the next move we can go one step further and get what would you do next? We get the blocks and then inoculate them ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we want to do that. But the only way for us to do mushrooms currently and be able to provide for all of our restaurants was to go the block route. And then it gives us, it's less potential for messing up and ruining blocks, and not being able to harvest things because of bacteria and mold problems.
Yeah, if you've never grown mushrooms, it's probably the way to go because it's just lessening your learning curve.
Yeah.
And getting you a product to sell right away.
Yeah. And we've also heard that starting up there's a lot of heavy machinery that you need to be able to buy. If
Yeah,
you're not
sterilize.
if you're not starting from scratch or like starting in a just a side job thing.
So I like the idea of buying a block. What are the economics on a block? You buy it for A, you sell it for B.
Yeah, so that is the big downside, especially with selling to restaurants because restaurants get the bulk deal. So we get a block for $5 a piece, and then after shipping is about 250 divided by all the blocks, so we're coming out to 750. And our competitors are currently selling for about 10 to what, even nine to $12 a pound.
And one block yields about a pound.
Yeah, you get about 1 to 1.2 pounds per 5-pound block.
And so we sell each block for $10 to $13,
Yeah.
depending on the variety.
So microgreens definitely make us a lot more money.
Way higher margins
Yeah.
on my.
But mushrooms also get us into the door a little bit quicker than microgreens because we're offering a second product.
Yeah, more of a one-stop shop now. And then also the benefit, even though you're getting far less of a margin when you buy the block as opposed to when you make your own blocks and inoculate them yourself, is all of that requires a lot of space because you can't make your blocks and inoculate them and fruit them all in the same room. You need separate chambers with airflow, not mixing spores. So when you're only fruiting blocks, you can dedicate the entire space to just that and you can produce a lot more mushrooms. So smaller margins, but we're able to have greater yields.
Yeah,
So it pretty much evens out.
And there's almost no labor involved.
Yeah, that's also the huge part. The way that we're doing it, there's no labor. We open up the blocks, we cut them, and we put them on the racks, and we leave until the rest is ready to harvest. We don't even have to water them.
The humidifier tub waters everything for you. So it's not like microgreen where you're watering each individual tray.
Yeah.
What's the harvest time from block to harvest on mushrooms?
From until we get that 5 to 7 days.
But yeah, depending on the variety.
5 to 7 days, 6 to 7 days. It depends on how hot it is. So right now, everything is growing a little bit quicker. So we'll get them on, they'll get to us on Wednesday, and we usually can start harvesting on Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, depending on the mushroom variety.
Yeah, it sounds like a nice little add-on. And for the work involved, you're not making as much, but not always about how much you make. It's what else is that bringing to the table?
We've had multiple restaurants turn us down because they just didn't want another invoice just for one product. They're like, hey, I get all my stuff. It's a one-stop shop.
Yeah.
I love your guys' products, but I don't really want to do the accounting side of having to deal with another invoice for a singular product that I can get already with my vegetables and produce and all this other stuff. So now being able to add another product, we're getting away from that problem that we've been dealing with.
Was the uptake rate pretty quick on mushrooms? Like when you started offering that, were people like, yes, we want some of that?
Yeah, the uptake rate was one of the reasons why we started in the first place, because it was like, we don't need to go out and do all these samples and more sales. We already have all these customers that we know use mushrooms. So we'll right off the bat, as soon as we're growing mushrooms, we'll be able to sell them.
Did you ask them like specifically, hey, if I sold mushrooms, would you buy them?
Yeah, we went to everybody prior and we had a sheet of everything that we could offer. And we're like, hey, what would you use? How much of a week would you use it? Are you okay with these prices? And then that helped us gauge how big of a unit to make. And then as soon as we started ordering mushrooms, we bought just the right amount to fulfill all those orders. And then we gave everybody samples. We figured out how to do it. And then it was off to the races. They were ordering them.
Yeah. And since then, actually, we've gotten some restaurants just with mushrooms that didn't want the microgreens.
Oh, wow. Okay. Is it the same kind of quality problem that's out there where mushroom distributors are lesser quality than stuff you guys are?
It's massively the quality problem. Even more. And it's also availability. So we didn't know this, but there's one other farm that grows oysters, but we pretty much cornered the market on it. There's just not, because they're not really selling as much to restaurants. So I recently had a chef just tell me our mushrooms are actually too good. And I dropped off samples and he was like, hey, these are great. We're going through 70 pounds of shiitake a week, but I actually just can't afford yours. And you should price them where they're at, but this is what I'm buying. And he showed me the shiitake that he was buying and it was all small and crumpled and wrinkly and black. And then our shiitake is fresh and light brown and firm.
Yeah, that's really cool how you're able to diversify like that. Do you just you, how do you approach new opportunity? It's just we'll try it if we think it pans out. Because I think some people are hesitant to pull the trigger and do stuff.
A lot of the time it's asking a chef, hey, what do you want to use that you don't currently use?
Yeah, we've tried flowers multiple times, failed multiple times. And it's just another thing that we want to get going eventually. So we keep on trying.
Yeah, and I guess you figure out a way and you've built up this huge customer base, which enables you to now float ideas across and it gives you some buffer. Like those new changes, new products are less scary because you have actual customer market research to say, hey, do you want this stuff?
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Like adding a single product could end up making us a lot of money. If we were to do two varieties of flowers and we were able to grow enough for all of our restaurants, 80 to 90% of them would at least order one type of those flowers weekly. So it's just, you just gained a substantial amount of money weekly because of growing flowers on top of the mushrooms and the microgreens.
Yeah, with no sales.
Yeah, there's no pitches, no that, nothing. Just asking if they use this. You're not having to go out and do anything else other than drive to your normal delivery days, your normal route.
How many restaurants are you in now?
We got 32 right now. There's one of our competitors in northern San Diego, I think just shut down or something happened to them. So we've been really going after those northern San Diego restaurants. And we know that they use local microgreens. We know they're up for using somebody that's not a big company, like not using specialty produce. Yeah. So we are hitting those hard because we know that they're available and willing to work with a local farm.
How do you approach growth? This is more of a business philosophy question. San Diego's huge. You can go from 32 restaurants and try and sell to 300 and stick with the products you have. And we add maybe flowers to it. That's tangential to where you're at. The other thing is you stick with, you try and grow that maybe to 50, but you add on more products. So you grow wider product wise. I don't know how many things are as easy of a fit as like mushrooms and edible flowers might be to microgreens, but there's other things I'm sure you could branch out to where you offer more to existing customers versus just let's do what we do well. Let's go get more customers. Which way do you lean?
I feel like,
Yeah, with the approaching new customers is that's like the actual effort that we put forth for growth, and then the growing wider, getting more varieties. That's more natural. That's something that we're not doing on our own. It's something that chefs are usually asking us for.
I feel like we enjoy that part of it too.
Yeah, it
Like
is fun.
most of the time it is chefs doing it, but like we see something on Instagram or somebody's growing something, be like, oh, look at this. And then we'll be like, all right, let's grab a pound. We'll see how it goes. But that's
Yeah,
just like the fun part of the growing aspect of it. That was a big reason why we wanted to do mushrooms. We're like, this is just, it's something new. It's something to break up all of this microgreen work. And it's just something else to look forward to.
yeah.
Definitely like the excitement and the personal interest plays a big part in it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then right now we can only grow certain flowers because they have to be in pots. They can't run rampant. They can't grow. And like mint, you said mint, is it? Mint turns out to be a huge plant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a chef wanted mint, and then it's just, I'm not sure if we have the space available to grow a gigantic plant. So we're dealing with growing the smaller things with the space that we have that can like fit under a racking system. But in the long term, we do want to grow all of that other big bushy stuff. Like it's lavender bushy.
Yeah, lavender's a pretty
Yeah. And I think pea shoots, they grow flowers, but peas are also just so big and bushy that we can't house that anywhere.
Right. Yeah. I interviewed somebody who did edible flowers that'll be on the podcast or maybe came out before this. And they had, it's pretty interesting, like their cycle. They planted once every maybe 2 or 3 times a year. They had them in 5-gallon pots and would just harvest them weekly to pinch off the buds. And there's decent money in them, pretty high profitability. They weren't selling massive amounts. That was the other part of it. They were limited, but it was an interesting crop that I think you're starting to see more and more microgreen growers also get into. when you think of where you're at in the business, how do you think about growth? Where do you look at like, I'm comfortable where we're at and I like the lifestyle, I like the
Uh,
workload
we
versus
don't
like
have,
pedal to the metal?
Just
we're pedal
metal.
to the metal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our idea was from the beginning was having multiple farms in multiple cities. So eventually once I feel like it's only just begun because when we were stuck in the garage at the old house, we were growing, but we were growing at such a small, slow rate that we had to be extremely careful of what restaurants we were going to and like what they used because of the space that we were given. Whereas now we run free and we shouldn't run out of space for at least a year. We can really fill this place up. So the growth aspect of it has only just begun. Like we were stuck between 20 to 25 restaurants
For a long
for
time.
2 years,
Yeah.
just with COVID kind of closing people down and then just not really being able to fit more people into our spot. Whereas now we're at, I think, 32. So we've already jumped up 7 restaurants in the small time that we've been here. We have a lot more on the fence. So it's just now the growth aspect of it is really happening.
And in the long term, the idea is to look at cities that have a big restaurant culture and put a farm in each of those.
Yeah, like the up and coming cities. Like I think we were talking about Austin, Texas. That was a great one. There's hundreds of restaurants there. It's a big, young, foodie town.
Yeah.
So that was it's a lot cheaper for living. So the only difference you'd have is we'd probably be selling things for a couple dollars cheaper just because of the financial living situation there. But it wouldn't matter because the financial living situation there is cheaper. So like the water, the electricity bill, the rent, everything is cheaper there. So it wouldn't be that big of a problem.
Yeah, and well, you have a pretty nice nugget in Southern California outside of like that
Yeah.
New Jersey, New York, Connecticut region between San Diego, Orange County, LA, right? There's a massive population, health conscious, a lot of money, a lot of restaurants, food culture. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
room for expansion there. Is it still just
Yeah.
you two guys?
Pretty
Yeah.
much.
Pretty
Yeah.
much.
His dad helps us out sometimes and that's it. Some days we'll have family days if there's a lot of cleaning to do, but it's just us two for right now.
Yeah. And we're lucky that both of our families want to help out.
Yeah, they're super interested in it and they love like what we're doing and
Yeah.
coming and seeing the farm.
What's a work week look like for you guys now, hour wise?
Yeah. Probably 30 hours a week, something like that.
Okay. And would you say it's at you're a comfortable full-time living
Oh, yeah.
way you can
Yeah.
pay yourself and all that? No,
Yeah.
I guess 30 hours a week. And then so it just fits there. And that's a nice lifestyle thing, right? Like where you have a balance of we can run the business we want, we can be successful doing it, pay ourselves what we need to get paid, and we're not here 80 hours a week. So
Right.
freedom to do all the things San Diego offers. That's cool.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then we're not even really I like to sleep in, but we're not even really we don't start work really until 10. Blake doesn't come in until 10:30.
Yeah.
So we're not even starting that early. We could start at 7, 8 o'clock and be done by 1:12 to 2 o'clock every single day and then really be able to enjoy our day. So we haven't even touched that aspect of it. We get to work slightly in the middle of the day and then we're just done after that.
There's also a bit more automation that could happen that would lower our hours weekly.
Oh yeah,
Like
like the
we
bottom
could
watering.
figure out how to automate bottom watering, and that would cut out a couple hours a week for each of us. We
Yeah.
could figure out a better way for tipping soil and getting the soil into the bins. That would take away some hours.
What over the last 5 years has been the biggest learning lesson outside of COVID or the biggest challenge you've had to overcome?
So
Yeah, from a growing aspect or just like in the
Grow-
business aspect?
Growing, business management, any of it. Like when you just think back, it was like, I'm glad I never have to deal with that again.
cilantro, I think, is the biggest learning curve.
Yeah.
Toughest thing that we had problems with that we just now starting to really figure out.
Yeah, we've noticed a lot of things will work for a couple months and then the seasons will change and then they won't work for that season. So then we're having to switch things up and we're having to remember what did we do last year? How did we do this? How did we do that? How did we grow this product? So like in the summertime, things will grow faster, but they will also die a lot quicker from what is it? Off what the
Root rot?
yeah, from root rot and the damping off and stuff like that. So that's something we've had to deal with. You can't just fill up every single tray because it's super hot. Some of the smaller seeds they'll die, and then the whole tray will get bad and they'll rot. So I guess it's just being more meticulous with each tray, even in a bigger facility.
Out of everything you grow now, what's your favorite thing to grow?
Radish.
Same thing from the very beginning.
Yeah.
The first variety we grew was
Radish.
radish, and it's still the favorite because it's just.
Grows
I
in
don't think you
cement.
could. Yeah, I don't think you could kill it. You can grow it
Yeah.
in anything. It just comes up perfectly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right on.
We've had radish just growing out of like cracks in the ground, and we're like, wow, it's happy there. It's happy everywhere.
Taking over, right? Super hardy, super fast, grows in the cold, grows in the heat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Well, yeah, I want to thank you guys for coming on, sharing your story. Look forward to talking to you and following you through the future as you guys continue to grow out the mushroom operation. For people that want to follow along with you guys online, they can follow you on Instagram at Scintilla Farms. I'll be sure to link to that. But thanks again.
Yeah, of course. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Diego.
Yeah, good to see you.